Hello again, fellow ranters. I apologize for taking so long. Time seems to have gotten the jump on me. Weekend, Father's Day, other things. But here I am, once more, with another addition to the Let's Make series. You may notice, Lich, you look different. Yes, I do. New mask makes me look less silly. The handkerchief and the glasses were a little much, I'll admit. And besides, it's quite topical with Spider-Verse being all the rave currently. But enough of that. Now, before we get into our second part of our little chess making, I come to you with a cautionary tale of why you should use an SD card and not hook your printer directly up to your computer. Now, there's pros and cons to both. It's easier to modify the G-code on the fly, which, as I mentioned last time, G-code is what tells your printer what to do. But it's a little hard to modify that when it's already on an SD card, popped into your machine, and it's going on autopilot. Now, some printers need to be hooked up to a computer. And that's where the problems arise. Because if that's ever unplugged or your computer shuts down, well, there's not much saving a half-finished print, which is why I bring to you this cautionary tale. Father's Day gift gone awry. Now you might be thinking, well, that's a perfectly fine looking Hellboy bust. But you see, friends, that's where you're wrong. For he is with half a head. Long story short, I forgot that my printer was hooked up directly to my computer rather than an SD card, which I am more so used to doing. I ended up unplugging my computer very briefly to move some cables around. It was only after it was too late that I realized my mistake. Now, if you have a smaller print and you make that mistake, you can save it. What you should do is grab a measuring tape or a ruler or something that you can measure in centimeters with. What you do is you measure how much progress you had on the print. You divide that by your layer height. And you would subtract that from the rest. You would go into the G-code and remove all those layers. And your printer should continue right where it left off. Now, if you've left your print to cool for too long, I suggest you tape it down, or else it's going to go everywhere and it's going to make everything even worse. But if you have a heated bed like mine and you are fast enough, you shouldn't need to worry about fixing it. But when you have a larger print, again, just like Hellboy right here, it's a little more difficult. But what you could always do is approach it with a similar strategy of measuring what you have so far, remove that until you have what's left, and you can print out the additional piece. And with a more or less flat surface on here, it shouldn't be too much more difficult to print out the additional missing piece and just super glue it right on there. Or maybe a heat gun or maybe a 3D pen would do as well. But now you know. Never unplug your computer mid-print. If you do forget, you should have a sign somewhere in your little workshop of make sure print's done before you unplug your computer, no matter whatever else you want to do. But with that out of the way, let's continue the making, shall we, ranters? Now, last time we left off with the first 3 pieces. An unorthodox 3 to start with, well, maybe not too unorthodox. Pawn and rook make sense. But king. It seemed like an interesting choice. But for right now, these three are not our focus. For today, our focus shall be the remaining three. The bishop, the knight, and the almighty queen. So, shall we? Now, just like before, to keep some, uniformity across these, once again, we're going to make a custom shape. Six-sided, just like the rest, to, again, make them feel like they're part of the same set, rather than a bunch of different inspired pieces. Though that could be interesting. I prefer uniformity. I suppose we should start with the bishop. It's not too difficult of a piece, but there is that notch to consider. But for right now, let's just make a simple base. And that is our six-sided pyramid, just like before. Let's scale this up a bit, shall we? Perhaps double height, or roughly. Remember, if something's sunk under the ground, you can either move it manually, or you can move over to settle, where it'll bring it just above the surface. Perfect. Perhaps we should now scale this down a little bit. Oh, wait. I'm actually forgetting the most important step. This is our base after all, so let's do like we did before. And get a rounded base, which is still nice and round on the bottom, but a far bit taller than our other pieces. Also, with quite a nice rounded top. I do enjoy that. Perhaps I have an idea. Let's make ourselves another cone. I have an idea of where this can go. Let's bring it right on up. Shrink it down to a reasonable degree. Now, we do need to handle the notch in the side, but that shouldn't be too difficult. Let's repeat what we did with our rook before. An easy way to make a notch or remove a large gap is by taking a cube and, well, molding it into whatever dimensions you need. Orient it properly. 30 degrees sounds good. Apologies. Mispressed. Negative 30 degrees should be good. And let's bring this up. Hit subtract. And that's a nice little notch in the side of our bishop. It's nothing special, but I do believe it conveys the point. Quite literally, if I might add. But that's a simple piece out of the way, and oops, I did not mean to grab all of those. Once again, let's subtract that as I did hit undo. Let's bring these pieces together as one group over here and move it on over. Now, let's move on to a slightly more, significantly more complicated piece, actually. Let's move on to the humble knight, or horse, as many have come to call it. Admittedly, I can't blame them when it really is more of a horse than a knight. But how do we approach this mighty, noble creature? How do we approach this? Well, let's start, much like we have with nearly every other piece. A simple six-sided cone. Round it out. And let's figure out what goes on top. Now, due to this rounded bottom, it may be a little bit off balance, which I would like to remedy. Actually, as a matter of fact, I think I've just gotten an idea. Now, a reminder, when you split a piece, that doesn't mean you lose both. As you can see here. And let's flip this around a bit. It's an interesting abstract horse, that's for certain. But I do believe it conveys the point well enough. Bit simple for my liking, though. I've got an idea for how to make this horse a little more interesting. Now, I did copy that piece we just cut off. There. Now it's more of a proper piece. And let's cut this in half again. Let's copy that and undo that cut, because I would like to scale this down just a smidge. Let's rotate it a bit, and lo and behold, our boring old knight has now become a noble unicorn. Frankly, it's the most inspired here, so I've made at least one chess set in the past, and I've always been stumped on what to do for the knight. It's just such an abstract piece. And when all of these others are as simplistic as they are, well, it's a little hard to figure out where to go from there. And before anything, let's make sure to put this together. Almost forgot to color this one. It's not important, but it is nice to have them all colored correctly, lined up in a set. And let's slide the knight on over there, next to the rest of its comrades. And finally, we move on to the mighty queen. Now, what do we do for such a grandiose piece, the most powerful on the board? Well, we start as we did before, with another cone. Except for, besides for the rook, it's all cones. It's cones all the way down here. But hey, a cone and a sphere it's a very nice shape to work with. Gives you a nice rounded bottom, so you could pull the piece back just a little bit, watch it bob, or just have it slide along. I think it makes for a nice appealing shape, nice appealing base. Of course, you could easily have however many sides you want to this cone. You could have it just be flat, no rounded bottom. Or maybe you could have it be angular and jagged so it doesn't roll around everywhere. To each their own. But I'd like to do what we did before. As we bring this up to about 100%. Remember, settle. And let's bring in a sphere and round off this wonderful shape. Remember to click both of them. Not quite the same shape as the bishop, but it'll do. It'll do just fine. Now, I think I do have an idea. Let's go back to custom shapes and let's pull out a shape we haven't worked with yet. The torus. Once again, 6 sides. And let's... How far can we go? The furthest we can go is 3 sides. Oh, I believe that's 33. Three sides. Very jagged, but... let's see how 4 looks. 4 is much nicer. Not so harsh, but not too round. If I weren't making these rounded, I do think that's quite nice. But, alas, we are going rounded. So, let's scale this down just a smidgen. Make sure it's actually touching the model. Just a nice color. And how about we... Wrong shape, apologies. How about we bring in a quote-unquote sphere? Really just a sphere trying too hard to be an icosahedron. It's almost there. It's almost, but not quite. It's trying a little too hard. And it's missing in the process. Now, I don't want to just make another scaled up pawn, but we can do something interesting with this, can't we? And so, I propose an idea. Let's copy and paste this little piece right here. Let's scale it down somewhat. And stretch. You may be wondering, what am I doing? Where am I going with this? Just wait and see, ranters. Wait and see. Let's use the wonderful mirror tool, as sometimes getting exact angles harder than you'd think. Let's combine these two briefly. And let's turn this a nice 30 degrees. And once again, let's get one more. And turn this one -30. Perhaps -30 is a little small. -60 then. Oops. Well, for this other one, 60 I would believe would be better. I did math. I took math. I should know these dimensions by heart, but alas, I don't. Perhaps we should actually just center these. Or not, actually. Let's briefly make the queen one piece. Move her down for just a moment. We'll bring her back up, don't worry. And let's get these pieces of a crown where they belong. And lastly, -60 for this last piece of her crown. Let's bring all of those together. And bring it up so it doesn't end up clipping into the queen. And there we go. She should be grounded. And let's bring this down. And there we have it. The mighty queen now has a proper crown. Let's make sure we paint her up proper. Just get rid of that ugly green. I have nothing against the color green. It's quite a pleasant color. It's just, you know, we don't want to see it quite right now. And let's grab the others. Bring them center stage. Bring these two a bit closer. No need to be shy. select all again. And there we have it. That is our little chess set. Now, that marks part 2 of our little chess set making. That marks part 2 of Let's Make. That marks the end of this episode. Thank you for sticking with me. Fuck. And that marks the end of today's episode of Let's Make. Thank you for sticking with me, fellow ranchers. Maybe you learned a thing or two. Maybe you didn't. If you didn't, I apologize. Next time, I'll make sure you do. Well, with that, have a good morning, evening, night, no matter what your time zone may be. And peace.